take our seats, please. Board members. Kat, thank you for being here. I see Kat. Let's start with roll call. Joan?
Charles Long,
Here.
Chris Mortensen,
Here.
Michael Shaw,
Here.
Priscilla Benali,
Present.
Kevin Mitchell.
Here.
Thank you, John. We do have a quorum. I'd like to call the meeting to order at this time. And let's do the Pledge of Allegiance and salute to the flag. Yeah, thank you, board members. Let's go down to item 2, approval of the agenda. Board members,
Motion to approve the agenda.
Motion's been made by Michael Shaw to approve the agenda, second by Priscilla. Roll call, Joan.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Miss Benali,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen,
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes, thank you, board members. We have approved our agenda. Let's go down to 2A, recognition. Mike? None. Let's go down to 2B, election of board officers. At this time, I'd like to open up nomination for the board president. Are there any nominations?
I would like to nominate Charles Long for board president.
I'll second.
Okay.
But I'll second it.
Okay, there's been a motion been made by Michael Shaw to elect Charles Long, second by Chris Martinson. Are there other nominations? Then I'd like to, by acclamation, close the nomination for the president. Let's do the vote by roll call. Joan?
Mr. Mitchell,
No.
Miss Benali,
We're closing nominations?
Yes.
Is that what we're voting on?
yes.
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen,
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes. So we've closed the nomination. Now we vote. All in favor of voting for one nominee?
Are we voting for that nominee?
It's
Yeah.
an acclamation.
Oh, it's good. Acclamation then. Hakushi. Yeah, John. She's a parliamentarian too, so. So I guess with that, let's go down to nominations for the Board of Education Vice President. Any nominations?
I would like to nominate Chris Mortensen as vice president.
Okay, nominations. We have nomination for Chris Mortensen. Any other nominations? If not, I'd like to close nomination by acclamation, and Chris Mortensen would be the board vice president by acclamation. Roll call. Joan?
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Miss Benali,
No.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen,
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes. Thank you, board members. We have a vice president, Chris Mortensen. By acclamation, let's go down to the Board of Education Secretary. Nominations are now open.
Mr. President, I'd like to nominate Mr. Michael Shaw to
Okay.
continue their education secretary.
Okay, motion by Chris Mortensen. He's not motion, but he's nominated Michael Shaw. Are there any other nominees? Second call, any nominations? Other nominations? If not, I'd like to close the nominations, and Michael Shaw will be the new board president by acclamation. Roll call, Joan.
Mr. Mitchell?
No.
Ms. Benali?
I think you said board president. We probably need to change that to board secretary.
Okay.
right?
The board
Excuse
pres-
me, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yeah, board secretary.
okay.
That's why Kevin said no.
Mr. Mitchell?
No. Oh,
Secretary.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Ms. Benali?
No.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, board members. We have elected new officers for the school year. Thank you for your help. Let's go down to item 3, approval of the meeting minutes. Let's begin with the June 14, 2021 regular meeting.
Motion to approve the June 14th, 2021 regular meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made by Michael Schaaf to approve the June 14, 2021 regular meeting minutes, second by Priscilla Benali. Roll call, Joan.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Benali?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes. Thank you, board members. Let's go down to June 21, 2021 special meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes of June 21st, 2021 special meeting.
Okay, motion's been made by Michael Schaaf to approve the meeting minutes of the special meeting on June 21, 2021. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Chris Mortensen. Roll call, Joan.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Benali?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes. Thank you, board members. Let's go down to item number 4, approval of consent agenda items. Board members.
I would like to make a motion approval of consent agenda items 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D, 4E, 4F, 4G, 4H, and 4I.
Motion's been made by Michael Schaaf to approve the consent agenda items consisting of 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D, 4E, 4F, 4G, 4H, 4I. Is there a second?
I'd like to second, but I have some questions also, sir.
Question. What are your questions, Priscilla?
The first one is on 4A2, the design and services for the roof replacement of Tegai High School. Will that be done before the school starts?
President Long, Ms. Benali, are you asking whether the roof will be replaced
Yes.
by then? No, it will not be replaced by then. It's a significant project that will take a significant amount of time.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question is 4A3. Could someone elaborate a little more on the IT professional services that will be provided?
Giovanna?
Actually, Bart's here also.
Oh, okay.
Miss President Long, Ms.
Bart.
Benali, we'll have Mr. Stanley come up, Director of Technology, and he can give you a little bit more information about the services that we've had and looking to continue those services.
Mr. Long, Ms. Benali, thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you with this. We have contracted with a company called Converge One that provides our IT technical services for keeping our network up and going. That RFP was put out. We had 2 companies that did bid, and one company was much bigger than the other company, and I believe the costs were pretty much identical, and we went with the bigger company, which is Converge One. So we'd like to continue that contract with Converge One. We actually have 2 employees that live here that work for that company, and that provides us services for maintaining our servers, maintaining our network connections, working with our communications providers in the event of outages, helping us plan, plus keeping systems like our HR finance system going, all of our networks going. And also we utilize that company to do a lot of application scripting and stuff like that keeps helps us manage all 10,000, 11,000 devices that we've deployed in with all students across the district. Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Ms.
and
Benali?
the last one was my main focus was what would they be helping us with the I don't know what Chromebooks, iPads, whatever you gave out to the students. So
Yes,
that
ma'am.
okay.
They have an instrumental role in managing the learning management system, which is Microsoft Teams, and managing the deployment of all devices across the district.
And last question, is it a different company that does our webpage, our website, or are they included in this?
President Long, no, it's a different company
Okay.
that we contracted out to do the webpage, which should be done pretty soon. At least the major part of the website should be. We'll hopefully show it to you next meeting, I believe. We may be able to show it to you, and you'll be able to see what it looks like.
The other comment I had was on, I'm very thankful to extend my thankfulness to Fort Defiance and Crown Point Healthcare for their continued assistance with the MOU in place with our students at the school base, for our students at the schools. And I had one more question. Let me see. I'm looking for it. It's on the agreement with the University of Kentucky. What is that? What is that? Are we paying for that, or are they paying for that?
President Long, Ms. Benali, I'll have Pauletta, Dr. White come up and actually talk a little bit more about that specific agreement.
Oh yeah, here.
Ms. Benali? Ms. Benali? Is it working? Okay. Ms. Benali, members of the board and audience, the agreement with the University of Kentucky is for internships and clinical experiences for the students who are enrolled with University of Kentucky, the social work program. So we're providing sites for them as students are completing their degrees. So, and hopefully they'll stick around and get hired with our district. So there is no cost associated with it. It's just an agreement that we will provide the site, and they'll be working with one of our licensed social workers.
Is there any way they can sign a letter of intent? That after they do stay for a little bit longer, like we do with TF or Teach for America?
President Long, Ms. Benali, we don't have something like that in place. We can hire them. It's always good to vet people a little bit before we decide we want somebody to work for us. And then along the lines of TFA, they have pulled out of New Mexico, I believe. At least they've pulled out of our area, so we no longer have TFA teachers coming into our district. As a side note.
Thank you for all answering my questions. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Gashim. Thank you, Priscilla. We do have a motion on the floor to approve the consent agenda items. If there's no further questions, roll call, Joan?
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Benali,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen,
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes. Thank you, board members. We approve our consent agenda items. Let's go down to item 5, study circle. Mike?
President Long, members of the board, I wanted to give you some information on 4 different items today as a part of my superintendent's report. The first is the GMCS K-12 Summer Academic Camp. You have a document in front of you that just gives an overview of our summer enrichment slash intervention, some kind of a summer school for students to participate in. It's a 3-week program that started today. We wanted to make sure that we provided some level, especially after last year during the pandemic. It's very well noted in research that there was significant learning loss on average for students not being able to be in person in school for much of the year. And we wanted to make sure that we provided opportunities for remediation for students. And so today we'll know a better idea of how many students chose to participate. This is a voluntary opportunity for parents and students. So we'll provide some data during the next meeting. But this particular program is funded through federal funding that we received. Actually, we have to use part of our federal funding in order to remediate. And so we're using some of those funds to provide this intervention slash remediation slash enrichment type situation for students, depending on what those students need. Any questions on that? It's paid for. Again, it's coming out of federal funds. The state, there's one of the other reasons why we really wanted to make sure this is done is because obviously per the last meeting, we all know that there was not an agreement reached to extend the school year for 10 days. And so this is another way in which we're able to add some more days for students to help them get caught up if needed or to get them other educational opportunities during the summer break.
Mr. President?
Go ahead, Kevin.
Since we're not doing the extended learning, of course, they would take the funding back for that portion. So are we going to be able to use that extended funding money for this then, or no?
President Long, Mr. Mitchell, so the funding for this is coming out of is it ARP? Is this one specifically ARP funds, ARP funds from the federal government? So those are like the CARES funding. The extended learning funding we no longer receive. You actually have to extend your school year for 10 days in your calendar in order to receive that funding. And that's something that the teachers per the union did not want to participate in. So we were unable to do that. So this is just another way in which we can provide more on a volunteer basis for students to participate, and also obviously teachers who want to work extra and have an opportunity to earn a little bit more money, that they are able to participate and continue to teach kids in the summertime.
Okay. So is this taking place throughout the district or just at certain schools?
I believe it's district-wide. That's actually it's district-wide, and food's provided to almost every single school. There's one school I believe that we moved food around. Had to do some Indian Hills. We had to do some things with the food arrangement, but it's provided district-wide for all grade levels, K-12.
Thank you.
There's no more questions. Next, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're doing, one of the items that we're doing in order to celebrate and encourage families and students to come back to school this fall. We have designated hundreds of thousands of dollars to school sites to prepare, I guess we'll call them more exciting activities, a celebration of coming back to school at the start of the school year this next year. And so individual school sites are given $15,000 at least to prepare for activities to celebrate the return of school. We wanted to do something a little bit extra, and this was actually suggested by the board a couple times in the last several months, that we do something a little bit more to celebrate students' return to the classroom. And so these individual school sites are currently developing plans on what that might look like. We're giving them the autonomy to figure out what that looks like with some parameters to make sure that they have an exciting opportunity for parents and families as they come back to school. Any questions on that item? The next item, number 3, is staffing. I wanted to just give you a little bit of information on our staffing situation specific to teachers. There's been a few comments that we've seen making the claim that there is some sort of significant number of teachers leaving the district of GMCS. And I just want to give you a little bit of data to show that that is actually not true. It continually, every year, continues to get better, actually. More teachers are staying in the district than leaving on average each year. So, for example, this past year, from 2 years ago to this year, as far as those that teachers that resigned, they've actually had a reduction of 36%, approximately 36% of less teachers have left. So we're retaining 36% more teachers than we did the prior year. Resignations are pretty steady. They're a little less than a couple dozen, or no, I'm sorry, not resignations, but retirements are a little less than a couple dozen each year. And so this facade that there's some sort of drastic number of people leaving the district as far as teachers is simply not true. I think what the board has done to recruit and retain teachers has gone a long way. Also, although we're not perfect, we're getting better at making sure we have better environments for staff to work and grow in as a professional and as employees. And so I just want to make sure that you had a little bit of data on that situation. We obviously this year is a tough year for recruitment. People, as I mentioned before, are kind of hunkering down where they're at across the country. But we're working really hard. We'll have some more data for next meeting about exactly how many teachers left we have to hire. But it has been a tough, it's competitive, and I've mentioned that before. It's a unique year in order to recruit and have people move from their homes on different parts of the country to get them to come here. But the incentives that you have approved have really helped in that effort. Questions on staffing?
Questions? Board members?
There's no questions. The last item I just wanted to touch on, there are a lot of questions coming to us, and I don't have all the answers yet, but we will soon, about mask wearing at school sites. Currently, we are awaiting information. I know many people have noted that the CDC has been changing some guidance on the need for masks. And so we are still waiting for that guidance, and also waiting for guidance to trickle down not only through the state, but also through the NMAA on what direction that we're going to have to go when school starts and when sports start again back up in the fall. We are currently requiring, as the state is asking, that anybody that is vaccinated, they can choose not to wear masks, and if they're not vaccinated, then to wear masks. I know there was a recent report that 100% of McKinley County was vaccinated. I'm not sure if that's true or not. There was an interesting report recently. I know that we're one of the most, if not the most vaccinated area, at least in the top in the country, definitely in New Mexico. So that's a positive thing for our community and for schools reopening. We'll give you that information as soon as I get it. I will not wait until the next board meeting to give that to you. I'll email it out or give you a call and let you know some of the decisions that have been made with respect to mask wearing and other guidance for next school year.
I have a couple questions for you, Mr. Hyatt.
Sure.
Mr. President.
Chris?
When you're talking about mask mandates, are you, I mean, that if you're vaccinated, I mean, it sounds like as per the state requirements, you don't have to wear a mask if you're vaccinated. Does that also, they haven't given us guidance about if that goes for students also? If there's students that are vaccinated where they wouldn't have to wear a mask as well?
Correct. That's what we're hearing right now.
Great.
That could change. So I want to be really careful because this is a controversial topic, and there's lots of different feelings about this particular topic in the community. But as of right now, that's where we're at. So we get rumors and we get people that tell us information that they say this is probably what's going to happen, and then it comes out and it could be different. And so I want to be really cautious of that. But hopefully soon we'll have some more specific guidance. Although, as you know, things can change at the last minute, and we'll make sure that we do our best to make adjustments as necessary.
The last question too, for me anyways, I don't know if any of the other board members feel the same way, but when you have some idea, or a sense of what some of these beginning of the year celebrations are going to look like, or whatever, can you let us know? I mean, I would, I'd be interested in attending and coming if there's, something and it wouldn't detract from what they're trying to do. I'd sure be interested in helping out.
Absolutely. We'll once those plans are developed, Mr. Bell is kind of working with that with our director's instruction to gather that information and make sure that we vet them to the extent that we are, so that we have appropriate activities happening. And as soon as we have that, I'll provide it to the board. We'd love to have you participate.
I have a question,
Kevin?
please. So at the present time, as of right now today, we have, I know we've already had, like last week, the kids basketball camp and then kiddie camps, and then this one will be starting, this one started. So what is the requirement as of right now for mask? What are we going by?
The requirement right now that is if you are vaccinated, then you do not need to wear a mask for all.
Okay. And are they having to show their card then? Or if they're taking their kid to a little basketball camp or the dance camp or whatever, they must show their card to say my child is vaccinated, or
No, we don't. We don't. There's some legal issues with asking for that kind of information, and so we have to be really careful with that. So we are asking people just to follow the rule to the best of their ability, and just as we are with staff. So.
okay, thank you.
I think Mr. Mitchell, just on the, I mean, I'm kind of in that same boat where I have kids and they want to, you know, play sports. I've got one who's 16, you know, and stuff like that. And I don't think there's really been any guidance about kids getting vaccinated. And so I think that kind of if you read between the lines with that, if you read between the lines with what they're saying about people who are vaccinated don't have to wear their masks, it basically means that like kids still have to wear masks. If you know read between the lines, I mean there hasn't really been any guidance about kids getting vaccinated or any push to get kids vaccinated. It's really been adults, and then they've pushed it down I think now to like 16-year-olds. But I mean like my 9-year-old and my 11-year-old, I don't think you're supposed to go get kids vaccinated for the COVID.
President Long, Mr. Mortensen, Mr. Mitchell too. That's why the guidance, as you've noticed this last year, some of it's understandable and some of it's not. We don't always get very good clarity on the rules. And so we're doing the best that we can with the information that we have. Sometimes, like I said, we receive information and verbally, and then the next day or even that night, it changes when it actually gets put in writing. So this clarity hopefully will come soon from the Public Education Department and also the Department of Health and also the NMA. We're expecting it any day.
Mr. Long,
Yes,
I have a couple of questions, please.
Priscilla.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for a couple of things. We've seen the accommodation for the virtual sports that we sign on to. I think that's been very beneficial for a lot of our families, especially during the COVID. So, thank you for implementing that. And the second is on our social media, a lot of the coverage on athletics and activities was wonderful. And then now I appreciate all the continued advertisements of the jobs that are available in our district that is continuously going out. So thank you for that, first of all. Secondly, I've got a couple of questions on the positions that were being posted. One of them is on the Navajo culture teachers. Do they need to have a bachelor's degree to obtain a 520 licensure?
No, they do not, Ms. Benali.
Okay, so I will let that person know. But just FYI, they did hear that from here, that they needed a bachelor's degree. But I'll ask a little more about it. The second one is school supplies. How are we going to do next year's? Are we still offering that assistance to parents?
President Long, Ms. Benali, yes, we are continuing that initiative to provide supplies. Even this year we provided them, even though we were in a remote environment, we still provided them, and we will continue to do that. Each year we tweak things to some extent, and we find better ways of providing supplies and making sure that some of them are used at home and at school and those types of things. As board members know, that we've had to make some adjustments and to figure that out, but we're continuing that initiative.
Thank you. And my last is a request. If we could get any up-to-date reports on the variant that's happening in New Mexico or even in our county, I think we need to see those numbers. And have we done another parent-student survey on their opinions of reentry of school?
So thank you for the request. With respect to the variant, we can look more into that. The Department of Health has not provided that information, as I know of, to the district. but we can check on specific on that information. As far as we have not yet sent out something that is asking parents about returning to school this fall. We have been thinking about that. It's something that is on our plate that we are working on to figure out the best way to do that so we get accurate information. One of the things that kind of postpone that is things are changing constantly with respect to successes and people's opinions about coming, and so do we want to base our information on return to school too soon? Obviously, we don't want to do it too late because we want to have accurate numbers, but we will be doing that in the near future to figure out exactly how many parents will be bringing their students back to school.
And Mr. Long, the last request is for you. If we could start thinking and scheduling a work session for our strategic planning. Thank you.
President Long, Ms. Benali, I just want a little update on that. We have contacted a consultant that we work with in order to set a date up. And after this meeting, we're actually going to be talking with each of you to see what date works. We're looking at October for a session for that. Thank you, President Long, members of the board.
Mike, one last question. So it will be in school, all kids will be in school this fall. There will be no virtual.
No, President Long, Mr. Schaaf, we still have Destinations Career Academy that'll be available if needed, but we're strongly encouraging families for their students to return to school, knowing how for most, and on average, definitely for students, virtual learning is not for everybody, and we've experienced significant learning loss with students. We need as many students as possible to return back to school.
With that,
Kevin.
with that question, maybe Bart or I don't know who would know. What is the outcome of the return of the technology that was given to the kids? Are they supposed to be returning that now at the end of the school year and then giving it back, or how? And if they are, what's the return looking like?
President Long, Mr. Mitchell, we did require the last week of school for those devices to be turned in for all students, and then we will make sure that we fix or update our numbers to make sure we have enough for next school year, because we're going to continue the one-to-one initiative. I don't have specifically on the top of my head what the actual return rate was from last school year as far as did we get all the computers back. I'm sure we didn't get all of them, so it's 11, 12,000 computers that went out, and so things happen. But Mr. Stanley, do you know of approximately, if you don't have specific numbers, percentages of computers that actually came back?
President Long, Ms. Benali, actually Kevin, you asked that, Mr. Mitchell. We've been working at getting devices ready for summer school. So we've reissued devices back to students as of today for summer school. That was our main goal. And then we're gonna get a count by school site. I know at like Jefferson, they have like only 2 devices they didn't get back. Some of them we have like, well, we didn't get back 40 or 50. We'll have a count of that probably within the next 4 or 5 days. The technology staff is actually working to run updates, to reset them so we can issue them to other students as needed, and do any repairs for them, make sure they're all ready to go. And when the first day of school starts, we will be ready to pass back computers to all students.
Okay. So with that, I had a grandparent say that the school came to her house and was asking for the mother and the child because they want the laptop back or whatever. And she said she felt threatened because they told her, well, you need to get that. We'll come back and let us know. Otherwise, we're taking you to court. And should that be done from the school sites?
We've asked that we try to get back all the computers from all of our students. And mainly, so we just didn't have devices just leave the district. I've got to basically turn off those devices for every device that we didn't get back.
Yeah.
We asked that police reports were filed for lost or missing things for inventory purposes so that we could purchase more I'm working on an order right now to purchase things. As far as being threatening, we never intended on schools to threaten our families. And so that I guess we'd have to go back to the school side and find out exactly what happened. And that's certainly out of my realm. It would be Mr. Bell
Yeah.
and the other assistant superintendents.
President Long and Mr. Mitchell. So we did collaborate between technology, business services, and inventory. We did purchase all of these devices with federal funding, which come with additional restrictions. And so anything that's lost or stolen, we have to file a police report on. And as Mr. Stanley indicated, every parent signed that they knew that they would be responsible for the devices. So what's actually happening for people who have essentially not returned the device is that there was a specific price list even given to parents on how much everything costs, so that they would know from the outset, if they didn't return the device, how much they would owe back to the district. Now, things that are broken, those types of things, wear and tear is going to happen. And so we have a replacement cycle plan for all of those things because we know it's going to be a long-term cost. I would also say that I doubt many of our families intentionally harmed or took the items. We do know that there's going to be problems, though.
Thank you.
One other thing I'd like to say is, because we had warranties on all these devices, if it was the first time that a device was accidentally damaged or lost, we didn't ask families to pay for those, but on a second or third time that happened, we were actually having them work with Mr. Chavis's office, because we understand our families don't have enough money to pay $700 for a laptop or $500 for an iPad or whatever. So I think we really worked to make this as feasible as possible as we can for our families. As far as what instance you're talking about, it's just some more information that I guess Mr. Hyatt can give us, and we can follow that up.
Okay, so that was what I was going to ask. You know, with insurance, if we don't receive those back, and you shut them off, are we allowed just to file insurance lost or stolen like we do with our phones, instead of having to actually file in court, or how does that work?
Sure, Mr. Long, members of the board, Mr. Mitchell. So our deductible on our liability insurance is $25,000 each for each incident. So we could probably cluster several incidents together and claim that, but it's likely not going to be enough. We're going to have to find additional funds to pay for it. We report all of those to our liability insurance company, but just due to the nature of the deductible, our premium per year is about $4 million. So our deductible is $25,000.
That's a high, I mean, yeah, that would almost buy all the computers over again, I guess,
Yeah.
right? It was like 12,000 computers at like 700 pop.
Yeah.
So
Chris?
I don't know. My opinion is kind of, they were all bought with CARES Act money, and most of the CARES Act money everywhere was, once you get it and give it out, it's gone. I don't know. But
Chris?
thanks.
Mr. President, and Mr. Stanley, I know you, I don't want to, I apologize for putting you on the spot. My question was, I had a question back, like in the winter time when we were first handing the computers out, and it really was almost more of a concern as a parent about, you know, any kind of like web filters or any of that kind of stuff. And one of the answers that I was given was, well, it's kind of hard because they've all been issued. Now that we have them all back, is there any thought process into web filters or more parental controls, or I guess you'd call it school controls at this point if the school's got it, but you know, has there been any thought put into that and stuff we could do to help keep kids off YouTube at 1 o'clock in the morning?
Mr. Long, Mr. Mortensen, our Dell laptops and our Lenovo, our Windows laptops, all have had web filters on them since we issued them. Our iPads, we did not put that application on the iPads. and that was for our K through 2 students. YouTube is an interesting dilemma. There is so much educational information on YouTube that we can't necessarily block it, and what we've tried to do is through Google, because YouTube is a Google product, we've tried to ensure that only approved videos could be watched by GMCS students, and I don't know if we're having an issue with that, because it does seem like kids can get any sort of YouTube video, but as far as other types of inappropriate content, our web filters are on those machines, and they have been on the machine since day one.
Great, thank you.
So YouTube is another issue that we need to look at and exactly see how that's working. And we will do that for you.
My head was about to explode. Like, I walk in and my 9-year-old is watching Minecraft videos on YouTube on his school thing at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm just like, what is going on here?
We don't have any rules against parents confiscating devices and letting them use them when they want to.
Smashing them on the floor or running them through a table saw or something.
But, so with that, there's no way of controlling them as shut off and shut on from our end, as far as, you know, after midnight, maybe they get turned off, and then 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, maybe turned back on,
So we experienced a realm of different issues with this initiative. One of them is obviously the chat feature. And if your students or your children are not watching really good content from YouTube, they're probably chatting with their friends at all hours of the morning. So this year we're working with Microsoft to turn some of those features off to where students can still participate in chat in a classroom level, but they can initiate their own chats. As far as a time, that's something that we can look at. I mean, we tried everything we could with the chat and other issues with Microsoft Teams, and what we found was, we could turn chat off for all students, but then the teachers couldn't use chat with students, or some other things that we tried with Teams. The duration, maybe through our web filter, we can actually ask that turns our internet off after a certain time. That is something that we will look into, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you. Well, hopefully we'll be back to almost normal, and our students will all return, and we won't have to worry about this stuff.
Actually, our students are still going to get devices, and we're still looking at making sure that people have internet access. So, you know, one of the things I would say, and if you've actually been to any of our schools during the pandemic, it has really been amazing watching what our teachers have done with their students and remote learning. They've created their own little cocoons, and they're using multiple cameras, and they're all learning they have learned everything that we wanted them to learn probably over a 3 to 5 year period. They all learned last year. And I think that Mr. Hyatt and his staff have a lot to do with that because of the training that we did through NCEE. But also, our teachers have just worked really hard at making this work for our kids this year. Or last year, sorry. I keep forgetting it's this year.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Agushin. No other questions? Then yeah. I think the other things, there's certain parents I know that try to take devices to the cell phone providers, and they want those companies to reconfigure the computers or laptop, whatever, so the parents could watch Netflix movies. I mentioned this to Mike a while back. You know, things like that come up with it's interesting, you know, how parents are getting smarter too.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, if there's no other questions, Going back to our agenda, study circle A, one, notices and communications. You can ink those in your calendar. And we have one action item, approval of revised board policy BE-3400 BID board members compensation and expenses. Mike?
President Long, members of the board, we got some recent information regarding, I guess we call it, I'll let Ron get a little more detail on the numbers, but has to do with reimbursement rates for different activities in the district. For example, when staff member or student goes on travel, how much the reimbursement can be for meals, how much the reimbursement rate is for hotels, those types of things. That is adjusted, and this is the board policy that contains that information, and so we're asking the board for some adjustments. I'll let Giovanna go in a little more detail about what those numbers are.
Mr. Long, members of the board, so this was the one policy where we had fixed amounts written in, and what I've revised that language to is that we adopt the new monetary amounts as they become available. It used to be $30 per day, it's now $45. It used to be the $125 for hotels, it's now $151. So there were increases due to the inflation of costs that were released by NMDFA. And so what I'm recommending is that we modify this board policy to assure that it contains language so that each time those amounts are raised, we can automatically adopt them instead of having the fixed rates written into the board policy.
And I would add, board members, that we can't go above it. We can go below, but I think it's safer this way so that any time it adjusts, we're maximizing the amount that staff and students can get or use. I guess it depends how what the situation is, so that they get the most meal they can get throughout a day, and it gives us the flexibility for hotels. Any questions, board members?
So, I'm kind of confused. Excuse me. This says, B-3400 board members' compensation and expenses, but you're saying staff and students?
So I apologize. Our other policies already refer to an adjustment with DFA. Only the ones for the board members were the last that contained the old language with the fixed monetary amounts. So that is the one that I'm requesting to make modification to. It will impact, as Mr. Hyatt indicated, staff, students, as well as the board.
Okay. I'll motion to approve.
Okay, motion's been made by Priscilla to approve action new business A.
I'll
There's
second.
Second by Chris Mortensen. There's no further questions. Roll call. No.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Benali?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes. Thank you, board members.
Mr. President, may I make a motion to adjourn if there's no further business to conduct?
Second.
Motion is made by Chris Mortensen and second by Michael Shaw to adjourn our meeting with all business taken care of. Roll call, Joe.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Benali?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Mortensen?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
150.
150. We're adjourned, board members. Thank you, staff, for those that are here. Assistant Superintendents, Kadon, Paletta, and our Deputy Superintendent, Giovanna, Joan, Andrew, Bart. Thank you for helping us. Have a good afternoon.